everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Maram Alkadhi. I'm a director at Thoburns, a communications agency. We look at change communications in Saudi Arabia predominantly. And there is probably nothing changing more than this industry. So that's why I'm here. I'm joined to my right by Nicolás. You're the sports director at NextEra, based in Spain. Bienvenido. Welcome. Sports director, you look after sports consultancy, individual players, you set up clinics and tournaments. And to the right of Nicolás, I'm joined by Jodie Sinclair, CEO of Theo Health. I will let you explain as we get talking what you do, but you do some really cool things in the industry that you've told me about over the last couple of days. So we look forward to hearing more about that. And Aneesh Madani from Game Tech and Match. I see what you've done there. I like that. Thank you for joining us. And the thing that unites everyone here is it's the first time in Saudi Arabia for all of you. So I hope you have enjoyed your time here. Aneesh, if I may kick off with you. We're here to obviously talk about investing in performance.
Yes.
That's broad, but there are such fine margins, certainly in football and certainly in sport at the moment, that nothing is left to chance.
Yeah.
What brings you here? Tell us a bit about your journey and tell us about investing in performance and how you see it.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. I know I can see a few of you around here, but we will try to have as much fun in this conversation as possible, and hopefully it'll be enjoyable while you're out here. Yeah, really excited to be here. First time taking it all in. I think a bit about myself. I spent a lot of time at both the International Olympic Committee and at Twitter over the years building global partnerships. So fun journey. Excited to see where the future goes over here. And personally, from an performance and sort of investing in performance perspective, what I'm really excited about is understanding what investing in performance on the field leads to an interest in fandom, sponsorships, economies around off of the field. So it'd be great to hear and learn more from both Jodie and Nicolás as we speak on that side of things. But happy to share more and see how I see a little bit of that.
Yeah, great. Jodie, tell us, I know I looked at you a bit wide-eyed when we first spoke about some of the stuff that you're doing, but it'd be nice to know what brings you here and what investing in performance kind of means to you and the technology that you're behind.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming here for us, we're doing performance tech, and so investing in injury prevention is truly what I think, or what we see is what the new 2026 thing will be. And in regards to coming to Riyadh, everyone here is pushing ambition. Everyone is really wanting to be the best of the best.
Big time.
And the way that you do that is you invest into the data that's actually give you that marginal gains.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we're doing, and the people we're connecting with here, it's really resonating as well.
Yeah, are you finding that it's there's a demand for it, or is it when you're speaking about it, do you find that people get you, or is this an area where you're having to do more explaining than?
Everyone I've spoken to so far, not only do they get it, but they want it, which is incredible.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, wearable tech, bringing the data out of the lab. Labs are expensive. Lab doesn't give you any sort of organic movement as an athlete is there, or whoever it may be. They're in a setting which is not how they actually train. And so how can you qualify or quantify that as true performance analytical data if it isn't actually what they're doing on the day-to-day?
Yeah.
And also I believe, if you need an entire team, an entire performance team to do that data analytics, then you aren't actually doing any service to that data. The athlete needs to be able to have it. They need to travel with that data without having someone telling them what it means. So
that's really interesting. Yeah. Nicolás, what does investing in performance mean for you and what you do on your day-to-day and your setup in Spain?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for having me here. That's the first thing. I'm here representing as NextEra Sports. So we are a company that we really like to bring to the players around the world the Spanish methodology, the Spanish idea, and of course through our programs and our facilities, we also want to bring technology to the players to give them the best service, to put them in the best situation in Spain through everything that we can provide in.
So you're offering them a kind of, I don't know, like a sort of a pathway through what you've done in Spain, and a sort of like a template that they can follow.
Yeah, I mean, many players that we are having, they are coming from different parts of the world, and as we were discussing before, they think they have the best methodology, the best idea, but when we sit down together, we try to know what they do, and of course the idea is there, but they are missing many things. So when they are coming to Spain, they realize where is the real level, and the level that they need to get. So we have to work hard to show them how they can implement this in their home countries. And as I was explaining you, we try to implement this through some new technology that we have in our facilities with AI, with new softwares to tell them, listen, this is the target. You have the players that are from Spain having this target, so you can reach the target, and we know what we need to work with them.
Yeah. So that's really cool. I mean, I'm a bit older than you guys, if I can say this, but I mean, I remember the early days of sort of sports science, certainly in English football, right? I remember watching it, and it was a horrible product. You know, pre-Premier League was an awful product, football, everything, the way people looked after each other. And I remember the early kind of years of sports science. Probably feels like it's in the dark ages now. But I remember even that, in the early, there were a couple of teams, right? There was sort of Arsenal did it early, and then strangely there was a Bolton Wanderers team that kind of took loads of old people, Fernando Hierro, Ivan Campo, all these people from Spain that people thought were on the, the exit shelf. He kept them fit, kept them playing, kept them whatever. And years later, he said, yeah, we were looking at sports science before others, right? How quickly has stuff like that moved from, say, 20 years ago now? Like, is even the term sports science archaic when you're looking at this? Jodie, what do you think?
Well, 20 years ago, I was 9. So
Come on.
But to bring it back into what even just, I think, the compound effect from since COVID has been astronomical. I think the true difference here is the fact that before sports science was very much, it was so far away from layman's that you couldn't understand unless you were actually a biomedical engineer, unless you were the sports scientist. You didn't know what you were looking at. And I think the barrier that's now come is kind of what I just touched on there, in the fact that being able to have the athlete understand the data as well, and not needing a trained physician to decipher it and then tell them what it means and have to do the conversion. And I think the fact that that barrier has now been reduced. And so now you're able to, rather than having someone that is off so far away from you, like academically, you're doing it again, you're in the lab, they're doing the deciphering of the data, and then they have to sit down, tell you, this is what we recorded, this is what it means, this is what you should care about, and now this is what you should do. That's 4 levels that you don't need. So the whole point of it is the fact that if you can, I think it's like Einstein said, you can only know a really complex problem if you can define it simply. That's all. I've just butchered his version, but that's the essence of it. And I think that's the same for sports science. It's the same for the performance data, in that only when the person who is actually going to impact the athletes, the coach, only if they can understand it and they can then tell their granny what it means, only at that point have you truly had a breakthrough in the fact that, right, this is going to make a difference. Because you don't have to have someone sitting them down, spending time convincing them. They can look at it and they can see, oh, this data's red. Why is it red? What should I do? And they already are able to make that sort of impact, and it's also improving body literacy. It's improving their ability to not just make a change because they've been told. They're making the change because they understand what that change then does for them, and they want to make that change.
So that sounds to me, I mean, I know I've just, as I said, showed my age there, giving an analogy when you were 9 years old. But what you're saying here is they've cut out that middle layer. I imagine when sports science first came in, there was a lack of understanding throughout the club, right? So now you're saying that there's an understanding from bottom up, is that you're seeing that the players now understand what the technical experts are now telling them. So that creates a whole different kind of ecosystem, right? Aneesh, what do you think? You're looking at me like you want to say something. Yeah.
I was just waiting for Nicolás to go, but...
No, going through the same topic that she was talking, I mean, from the coach's perspective, when you have a meeting with the players and you need to explain them what they are doing and how they are doing it, and sometimes you need to talk with the parents and these kind of things, it happens like they are looking at you like, what the hell this guy is saying, because I don't understand what this person is saying. But when you have the numbers, when you have the data, and you saw them in how they are doing, you compare them with the rest of the teammates. You compare them even with players from another teams. They realize in which position the player is. So
sure.
the parents has a better perspective. Of course, that in football is not 100% the perspective of the data, because the coaches also think about another kind of things like mental things for the players. Every player has different personalities, so you need to treat them completely different. Even if you are handling a group, you need to know that every player is completely different.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's coming out of the conversations I've had with you guys, is this kind of individualization or this personalization of fitness and health and whatever it is in elite sport. You know, the days of kind of running across the pitch and kind of everyone doing the bleep, it seems to be much more tailored. And that's what you're finding, right?
Yeah, and even something easy like to one player, that player can be more sensitive than the other one. So
For sure.
if you are a coach, you cannot use the same words to that player and to the other player, because you're not going to have the same result. So it's really important how you treat the player in these kind of things. And when you have the conversation with the parents, a part of this, of course, you have to explain them about the data, because everybody knows about numbers. So if you say this player is 9 of 10 of this thing, they will understand.
No, for sure. I agree with you. And how have you found it? You know, you're talking here about Jodie, you mentioned the kind of appetite that you're seeing for the tech that you offer. How do you think, I know it's your first time in Saudi, but how do you think this gap is going to be filled here with all that they've got on the slate, the SPL, all the stuff going great guns? What do you think? What's the gap, and how do you think they fill it here?
I think the difference here is actually, which is a lot more rife than we're based in the UK, is the attitude. And it's the fact that here there's so much ambition that, you know, you put the money towards it, you can absolutely strive ahead on it. But it isn't just that, it's more than the money, it's the actual, like, having that desire for innovation and having that desire to actually look at what's around, and rather than try and reinvent the wheel and try and figure out a solution to a problem that hasn't even been, like, found upon yet, it's like, well, a really known problem is the fact that an injury will take out a team, it'll take away your win, and it's like, well, rather than looking into the optimizing part of, like, let's invest into better training loads, which obviously has an effect, you know, you do need that.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the end of the day, you can train them all you want. If someone then becomes injured, they're not on the field. And so it's like, rather than having to, you know, plan for having 2 players out for an entire season, when you've invested all this money into optimizing how they should train and how they should eat, how they should sleep, it's like, well, if you don't actually understand the really micro development of the muscle in terms of the agility and stuff like that, planting the foot wrong means you've just wiped them out. And so I think the difference here with the mentality is the fact that knowing and understanding, like, how large the market is in regards to preventing that injury in the first place rather than treating it in the most optimized way. And so, yeah, I truly believe that the difference here is largely, like, the size of ambition and the desire and seeing things from, like, a much more holistic view, rather than looking at traditional football where it's like, well, it's always been that way, therefore we should always do that way.
That phrase is, we've always done it like this, or, you know, this is how we've always done things.
Yeah, why fix it if it's not broken? It's like, well, actually it is quite broken.
It's something that we do have a lot of in the UK. I don't know if it's the same in Spain, but no, we've always done it this way. Whether it works, whether it doesn't work, it's like we've always done it. One thing I can certainly say for sure here is that there is something weirdly like a last mover advantage. I'll say last mover in terms of you're looking around best practice and go, yeah, I'll pick that, I'll pick that, I'll pick that, I'll pick that, and then I'll turbocharge it into the future. And that's, you know, Aneesh, how do you see that?
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you mentioned last mover advantage, because I think one of the most interesting stories from the Paris Olympics for me personally was this woman named Kristen Faulkner, who started cycling for fun when she used to work in finance in New York. And a few years later, she ends up winning Olympic gold medals at Paris 2024. And it's interesting because you think about it and you say, what change has happened in performance science that allowed someone to start so much later than the typical athlete does and still achieve so much success? And the only reason I bring that up is that yesterday Jodie and I were here at the conference, and a woman walked up to us and saying hello, and we understood that her name is Muruj Adil. She's a pro cyclist for Saudi Arabia and is looking to qualify for the Olympics in LA 2028.
Wow.
And we were talking to her, and we were talking about the story of Kristen Faulkner, and she's like, yeah, I met Kristen Faulkner when I started training early on, and Moraj literally started cycling at the age of 24. And so this is a really interesting story, and for me, this notion of performance as possibility, right?
Yeah,
We're
like
breaking a lot of new ground in Saudi Arabia as far as the sports that athletes will end up choosing, the ones that they will want to pursue. How do you tailor that interest to exactly what you need to succeed at the highest levels? That, I think, is going to be fascinating to follow.
Yeah. Well, what I'm taking from that is that maybe there's still a chance that I can play for England or play for Iraq, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's still...
Maybe chess.
Never.
Maybe chess.
Okay, good one. Very good. I see what you're doing there. And what do you think, like, what is the, something like this moves so quickly, right? Like it's even from the outside, you see something that might be relevant now, something that you're offering, for example, in your consultancy where people come, something you offer now, you might not offer it in a year's time, right? Things move so quickly. If you sit here now and you have a crystal ball and you think, right, okay, what am I going to be doing in a year, 5 years? Are you even able to look that far ahead, Nicolás, for example?
You mean here in Saudi?
No, back home. What you offer?
You mean to offer to the
Yeah,
people
yeah.
in here? I used to say to my wife that I don't think that far than
okay,
3-4 months ago.
It's always a good
after, so
yeah.
because sometimes she's putting me on trouble and she's telling me, where we see us in a couple of years? And it's like, I don't know, the life changed like this. So this kind of question for me is a little bit tricky,
so
even at home.
What I'm taking from that is he's living in the moment, so that's fine.
Yeah, this is the reason.
I like that. Jodie, you're obviously at the forefront of something pretty cool in terms of where this could go. I don't know if you're able to talk about the sort of partnerships that you have already or the interest in, from certain clubs that are interested in what you're doing. But I mean, how does that look for you? How exciting is that?
Yeah, and I think just kind of touching on what you were saying, like from the 1 year, the 5 year, how it changes. I think really why we're seeing such an drastic change in the last few years is really around like Moore's Law and the fact that the sensor technology has gotten smaller, it's gotten lighter, we've gotten smarter with algorithms. AI has given the ability to do mass analysis of data in lightning time, in real time. Again, taken out of that lab, giving you the instant insights on it. And for us, the way that we see it is like right now our technology is smart clothing with the sensors integrated on the side. You've seen them, we have these 2 detachable brains, these devices on the side of the shorts. Right now it's like kind of smaller than a hockey puck. It's light, it's 29 grams, but it's still relatively the largest and heaviest we'll ever have it. And the way that I see it for us is the fact that, like I said, true analysis is when you're analyzing a movement in the moment. You're analyzing the movement when they're on the field. They're analyzing the movement when they're in the gym, doing the things that matter. Yeah. And so for us, the vision that I have with Theo is the fact that we'll get to the point where you won't even need to have a detachable device that hooks onto the shorts. You won't even need anything to put into the leggings. You will just put on something that looks like a normal pair of compression shorts or Under Armour or whatever style of base layer.
And it has the whole...
And it has the tech inside it. It's in the actual threads, in the fiber. And then kind of to touch on, I can't name too many of the people we are involved with just yet before the beta pilot. But one part is that I have been invited on to a think tank, a 5-person think tank, which is led up by Dr. Nico Mejice, Real Madrid's medical advisor. We also have the head of aerodynamics and thermal management for Bugatti. I'm not quite sure how I'm in this group right now. Just a wee Scottish Islander. But the whole part here is the fact that using Theo as a kind of foundation, we want to create completely superhuman product to create superhuman athletes. And so the entire reason behind this is in complete holistic overview, taking in every data point that we know about this individual and truly personalizing their sort of care and their sort of training and their recovery to how their body processes an entire plethora of different biomechanical and biofeedback markers.
I mean, that sounds quite futuristic for this middle-aged man on
magic
this panel.
shorts.
Yeah. But I mean, you're moving into a position where, again, broadly to the theme of investing in performance, like this, it's going to become integrated into, from the days of a sports science department to no, this whole thing is, in the fabric of football and sport more generally, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I said, improving body literacy. So like if you give the ownership back to the individual and they can understand why, because the thing is, they're an elite athlete for a reason. They've trained hard, they're disciplined, they work hard. They'll do the random science experiment and be the guinea pig if they know that it's going to give them a marginal gain. And so the closer you can bring them to understanding the actual metrics that they're giving and the outputs and inputs that they're also getting back, that's when you're truly going to see this transform, because you're no longer, like I said, trying to convince them on something. They're actually probably going to bring you some ideas and be like, well, if we can do this, can we do that? And that's where it's just going to compound in the fact that the more that they care and they invest in themselves,
right.
Which comes from obviously investing in the products that get them to invest, then it's just going to get that compound effect where we are starting to build superhuman athletes, and injury prevention or kind of injuries will completely reduce. Obviously, we can't bring into like something that's, if you're getting hacked, a 2-foot slide tackle, you can't really prevent that.
You can't,
This, I think, is something like 87% of non-contact injuries happen from overtraining in the gym. And the reason behind that is because if you think about elite athletes, the mentality that they have is, I'm going to drive and I can push past pain.
I'm going to push through. Yeah.
And it's like sometimes, well, is it a good pain? Is it a mental thing that you should push past? Or is it your body saying, hey, listen, enough is enough. You're about to go too far and you're going to tear your muscle. So that's really where the kind of the compound effect is going to come from.
Yeah. Nicolás, did you have anything to add?
I'm agree 100% with what he's saying. Yeah, because now in football we can control almost every single aspect. If you go 10 years ago, there are many things that we were missing. I was football player as well, and today I compare with the players that we have, and it's like, oof, this is a big difference because we can control this, and this. And this is something that 10 years ago we were not even the doctors that we have in the club, they were not even thinking about this kind of thing.
Wow. So, you've seen it that quickly. And I was interested in something you were telling me about the, and I'll be diplomatic about this, but the levels when you're seeing kind of people coming into contact with certain standards right now, and they're miles off it, for example, I'm thinking of, this is a very sort of broad example, but I remember there was a lot of hype around a footballer from Indonesia. I can't remember his name, but he made a move to Oxford United a couple of years ago. He hasn't played a game yet, I don't think, right? But he was the great hope in Indonesia, huge population, football mad. They'd found their star. Now, I don't know the ins and outs, and I'm speculating here, but he's obviously come to a very difficult league, a very kind of different way of doing things, and he hasn't been seen. Do you think it's potentially standards and things like this and things that maybe need to raise?
In football and in most of the sports, you cannot force with money the things happening. What I want to say is like you need to start working from the base. You cannot start putting the money on the top and expecting to have results, because that's impossible. You can have results a couple of times.
Right.
But in a normal situation, for example, here in Saudi, they know that they need to start working from the base.
Yes.
They have a lot of potential. You cannot go to the top. You go to the base, you start working with the small kids, small players, small athletes, and you will see the result in the next 10 years, let's say. Here there are a few examples. Right here in the complex that we are, there is Riyadh schools here. They have an academy inside the school, so they are thinking to build them up from the base, from the early ages. So I think if all the federations start working in these kind of things, in the future, they will have the results.
Personally, I think you're right. I think it was very clear from even the summit here, right? Omar from the SPL was speaking yesterday, the CEO, and he was talking about the sort of it being more than just signing superstars and big salaries and marquee signings, etc. That it was the whole sort of ecosystem. Look, and you have to be careful with the wording of this, right? It's not like you're not saying we need to change everything or we need to whatever, but it is top down, bottom up. All the things that you're saying.
In football we say that. You can teach one player, but if you teach one coach will be able to teach full generation of players.
There you go. I like
it's
that.
Really important to work from the base. And the most important thing, and me as a coach, I can feel it that if you invest on the coaches and you invest in create the best educators, it will be the best way to, and you give them the right tools, it will be the best way to make your country grow as with athletes.
I might need to speak to you guys because I coach my son's football team, and they're on a terrible, terrible run. They haven't won in about 6 months. So So maybe I need to speak to you guys about the investment in that. Aneesh, you gave a really cool anecdote earlier that you were talking to me about one of your idols. Do you want to hit me with that?
Sure. So I love tennis. Grown up as a Roger Federer fan, was reading his biography recently, and I know tennis is really interesting out here because we have the world's best tennis players coming to Saudi Arabia in Riyadh every November, especially the women now, and we'll have a Masters 1000 from 2028. So we get the best men in the world out here as well. And it's really fascinating to me, the question of, okay, where does tennis go from here in this country? And I think back to when reading about Roger Federer's biography, he was talking about, or like they were talking about the fact that his conditioning coach at the time essentially designed, like there was creative design around performance, right?
Yeah.
Which was that, okay, Roger, you don't need to go and run on the treadmill or just do these specific things, lift weights in this boring way. We'll design your entire body around actually explosive endurance, which you need in tennis. And so everything happens on the tennis court. And with the idea that he has to be able to play a 20-year-long career, right, at the top level. And you need to take care of yourself very differently, because peak performance doesn't look like peaking once and then not being able to achieve that peak again.
Totally.
How do you actually come back and do it? So it's quite fascinating, because these are the things that we don't tend to see on the outside. You look at Roger and you think, oh, what an effortless, talented tennis player who probably doesn't have to do any work to actually get to this place. But the hard work is happening behind the scenes, but it's so specifically designed. Becomes interesting.
No, I love that anecdote, because that's kind of what we're talking about here a little bit, right? It's this idea that we saw, arguably the greatest tennis player of all time. We saw, as you say, one-handed backhand, always looked effortless. It was fine. The work that went in behind the scenes, tailored to him, and that's, I think, what you're seeing at elite level sports now, is that you pull the curtain back and you're like, oh, there are so many different strands here for each person, and I'm also, again, coming from a time where like the goalkeepers wouldn't train with the main team, right? The goalkeepers would just do their own thing. And you're like, well, you need to use their feet, right? So the idea of the kind of investing in performance even came from the idea of, let's involve the goalkeepers a little bit, right? No, I think that's really interesting. I think we're kind of on to something in, certainly in Saudi Arabia, but I think generally in elite sport, I struggle now I kind of picture playing against the footballers sometimes. I think, okay, what would it be like? What would it be like up against this guy? I played football against a reserve from Feyenoord once. He'd never played for Feyenoord. He was the most unbelievable footballer I'd ever seen, It was like, you didn't make it. Right, so what's the difference between you making it and how did you not make it, right? And I guess it's all these things that we don't see behind the curtain, the diet, the things that you're pushing, the things that you're trying to change here, that maybe change that, right?
Yeah, I think just tying into actually what Aneesh was saying there regarding, how much goes into Roger Federer being the best, and it's all behind the scenes, and actually also tying in with your question earlier in terms of what do you see as the difference in Saudi of that mentality, etc. And I think up until now, all of these things with Roger would have been the fact, like, right, we treat it like a science experiment. Let's try this, and then in a few weeks' time, once we have enough data collected, is it right or is it wrong? If it's wrong, you go back to square one. You're like, right, let's try something else. And I think what's happening now is the fact that because what we're able to do is like a rep-by-rep analysis, real-time analysis, you're finding out a problem on rep 1 rather than at rep 50. You're finding it out on rep 1 rather than after like an entire week of doing that program or 6 weeks. Then it's like not only are you actually saving that session, but you're actually saving like an entire season for them. Because if you do something that's wrong for 6 weeks, that's a potential injury that could take you out for another 6 weeks.
Of course.
So I think the ability to actually find out whether these science experiments, because this is a lot of, especially with the tennis side of stuff, longevity, like 20-year career is very different to a footballer.
Yep.
And the longer, cut out there, the quicker you're able to find out whether this decision and this kind of experiment or this outlook that you've gone and you kind of like instilled in the person, the quicker you can get the answer, the quicker you can then double it, compound it, or the quicker you can be like, right, retract, let's prevent what was just about to happen, and let's move in another direction. So
do you think that would lead to like you know, you were talking about all those different layers that got cut out through your technology and the departments that were bloated. Do you think we're going to see like a sort of just one man and a computer? Or do you think it's going to be, like, how is that going to look? Like, what's the structure going to look like, do you think?
I mean, what we're doing.
Yeah, you want to take them all out.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that we're launched right now is we're focusing on the strength and conditioning coaches, the physiotherapists, medical performance. But the long-term vision for us is always going direct to the consumer. So although, yes, we're here because we're interested in elite football, elite performance, you know, all of these elite performers all have an entire fan base of kids that want to be like them, of anyone. I mean, we all want to be like them.
I still want to be a footballer.
There we go.
Yeah.
And you can still be a footballer, maybe just not a very good one. But, but what we're doing, again, it's what I spoke earlier again about the data and being able to understand that. So, and I say this to my team all the time, you could have the most groundbreaking, revolutionizing data, but unless it does two things, it's rendered pretty much useless. The first thing is that you can look at it, anyone can look at it, they can very quickly understand what they're looking at. The second thing is that they can very easily understand why on earth they should care. And if you have that, then again, you already have a direct impact of like, oh, I can see this information and I care about the information, I can make a decision. So what we do against our competitors on it is the fact that, you know, my background is actually design, self-taught engineer, also a former athlete. Our competitors are all designed by principal scientists, by really high-end expert engineers. And I think what they forget is the fact that the people that need this, they're not off their level of expertise. They're not off their level of academia understanding. And so what I'm doing is that for when you look at our information, if you move too far left, if you move left, things move left. If you move forward, things move forward. If you move too far right, they turn red. If you're in the sweet spot, they're green. And it's simplifying it as much as you can so that you get an instant actionable insight. You don't need to do any deciphering of it. You don't need to give it to a physician to do the rendering. It's like you already know that, oh, well, hang on, let me just gamify this and let's kind of keep myself in this green spot.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that sounds to, you know, from a layman's perspective, that sounds like something that's going to make it much more accessible, much more easy to adopt, is that, you know, you can actually understand it. Do you think there's a degree of like, you know, the moment you see a problem that you're solving, you know, with innovation, you're often solving something that people don't know is a problem yet. Do you think, and again, sorry, Nicolás, because I'm asking you to look like, well, this is much further in the future, but like, do you guys think that there is a degree of that where like you're solving problems that we know about now, but then there's also innovation is such that you go, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Is that where you're going?
It's a good question. I mean, sometimes honestly, the way I think about this is like, where does biology meet technology?
Yeah, deep.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you think about even the simple idea that what does being a world champion mean in any given sport, the goalposts have completely changed.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
When I think about Formula One, happens here in Jeddah, it's the fastest street circuit in the world that drivers have to drive at night.
Yeah.
Right? That concept did not exist a couple of decades ago.
Yeah.
Right? There would be no racing done under lights in Formula One.
Yes.
Right? The championship today is actually 24 races, not 16 races like it used to be a decade ago. What does that mean for performance? Because the drivers are the same off-season. It's the same 3 months before Christmas to when they start racing in March. But now they have to prepare to go back and forth around the world and be able to perform at that level. So how much can we push athletes to actually perform? And then, you know, sometimes you look at football and team sports is maybe slightly different, where like the sport can go from, it was a sport of like the playing 11 to now the squad of 33.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because you have to then like spread performance out. It's not just humanly possible to play 100 matches a year, right, at the best elite level.
Again, Aneesh, I'm coming from the era of one substitute. I remember one substitute. It was just one poor guy. It's like, okay, you come on, whatever position, you just, can you be a right back? Yeah, you'll be a right back. Can you do this? Can you? So it's interesting. Look, I think one thing that, you know, you're talking about there is it's like, as elite sport gets more intense, more competitive, more money-driven, whatever, surely burnout and surely, you know, what you were talking about, protecting your assets, these are assets. You know, these are highly trained, highly tuned, refined, you know, machines. Is this all designed with that in mind, in terms of like, there's going to be more, so you need to be fitter?
So yeah, and again, following on from what you just said there, it's more so in the fact, so we've touched on the fact that it's about performance, we've talked on the fact it's injury prevention. The third kind of like crux of that is recovery. It's understanding how you recover, and everyone recovers completely differently.
Yeah.
So you can recover differently by how much your cortisol level drops. You can recover differently by how much you sweat. If you exert more sweat, your electrolytes go completely down.
Oh, wow.
You can recover differently by your sleep quality. Some people can function off 4 hours, some people need 12. Obviously, then there's the other part of like, well, if they're traveling all the time, there's jet lag. There's also just being up at that sort of altitude in the plane.
Yep.
There's so many different things that come into it. There's how your body deals with vitamin D. There's an entire basis that goes under the skin that right now, unless you're hooked up in a lab with a load of sensors and a load of wires and a lot of invasive technology, you don't know what's going on. And so it's not just optimizing the performance. It's not just which is there in preventing the injury.
Yep.
It's optimizing the recovery and knowing that this individual needs this type of recovery. This individual here needs that type of recovery. And I think that's why, and obviously burnout is, you know, that is
real.
Yeah, 100%. But the way to avoid that is understanding what does this person need and how do we, it's all the tailorability, it's personalization, but recovery is the third and foremost important.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting when you put it like that, because I don't think the football calendar is going to clear out anytime soon, right? It's not as if we're going to see less and less games. In fact, you know, the Club World Cup recently showed us that, you know, that was a really cool format, but it was also like, how have we got time to do this? You know, Asian Cup's on now, blah blah blah. There's just non-stop stuff. So I think your point there about recovery is so important. It's probably the holy grail, right? Is to get those three things together and then protect your assets. Yeah. Does anyone have anything to add before I play us out with the song? No. No? Well, look, thank you very much for your time and joining us. I've enjoyed this discussion. I've enjoyed meeting you over the last few days. I hope you've enjoyed your time in Saudi and that you come back with us next year.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you so much.